Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you coming out today. It is a beautiful, beautiful day to be in Ellicott City. As we approach the one-year anniversary of the tragic flooding that struck Ellicott City, it provides us with an opportunity to reflect on all that has happened and been accomplished thus far, but also the opportunity to look ahead. Let me make it really clear before we start. The last year represents a textbook model of how government and people can work together to make communities stronger and better. And there are a lot of you here who we owe a great deal of gratitude for working so closely with us. Following the flood, we formed the Community Advisory Group under the leadership of Senator and former County Executive Jim Roby. We did that to ensure that the recovery was a partnership between the community and government. We also brought back former Fire Chief Joe Herr, a trusted member of the community, just lives up the road, to lead the county's immediate recovery efforts. We owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to both of those gentlemen. We know the flood did nearly $11 million in damage to just our public infrastructure, meaning the sidewalks, the curbs, the roadways, and more. You're fine, Cal. The damage to private property and the flood's impact on the local economy was much more. We've already completed a number of flood mitigation projects throughout Ellicott City, and these projects are some that you may not notice when you drive down the road. We've rebuilt a channel wall at the top of the hill between the parking lots E and F. We've built a number of new retaining walls like the one on Hamilton Street and the one you see behind me, or actually in front of me over here at the wall going under the bridge. If you go up to the corner of Old Columbia Pike, behind the old theater, you will see tremendous boulders that have been put up to strengthen the channel wall there. I've been told that some of those boulders weigh in excess of 4,000 pounds. Still, some of what you see is temporary, such as the asphalt sidewalks and the patches where bricks and concrete used to be. Last year, we had 4 community meetings after the flood that solidified our commitment to make Ellicott City a model, resilient community. We learned how other communities had dealt with similar flooding, and we received more than 200 ideas from folks in the community about how we could make Ellicott City stronger. We kicked off a master plan process that will result in an amendment to the general plan, the first of its kind for Ellicott City since 1981. We've already held 2 more public meetings to solicit additional community input as we developed this plan. It gives me great pleasure to say that almost a third of the projects that were suggested by the community have either been completed or are in the process of being completed, while half of the projects suggested are currently being reviewed through the master plan process. We have taken your ideas seriously. Thank you. Immediately after the flood, we knew we did not have all the answers to address the problems of the future, so we launched several studies to gain a better understanding of the underlying issues. It was through this community input and the analysis conducted through the studies that we have developed the next phase of our flood mitigation strategy. Today, I want to announce that the county will be pursuing 4 major flood mitigation projects that will cost approximately $18 million. These projects will allow us to retain more water in the upper reaches of the watershed, and they will improve the way we move water downhill, basically making water less likely to back up and flood the streets and our homes. We will work with our federal and state partners to help in funding these projects, as their assistance is imperative to the successful implementation of these projects. Howard County cannot do this alone, and we'll definitely be reaching out to our federal and state partners. They were very helpful in the weeks and the months after the flood, and we're hopeful that they will join with us in our commitment to making our beloved town even more resilient. As we've said since the flood, anything and everything is on the table, with the understanding that not everything would be feasible, not everything could be funded, and we would prioritize projects to make Ellicott City a model, resilient community. These 4 projects we are moving forward with will produce the largest immediate impact to mitigate future flood damage in Ellicott City. As you can see from the map to my right, they are located throughout the watershed. There will be a stormwater retention facilities here on New Cut, just up the road, at Tiber Branch and Hudson Branch, all 3 areas in Ellicott City. There will also be storm drain improvements along the west end, which will include additional cross culverts and new piping. And if you went to the H&H study in McCormick, we're going to make sure that that piping certainly helps with the flood there that happened right near the West End auto. And we think we can do it with that new piping to make a dramatic effect to help the folks living on the West End. We have already begun the design work on these projects, and we will look to begin construction on some of these projects within the next year, though it will take a couple of years to fully implement all the projects. Although these projects will alleviate the significant amount of flooding, a storm like we had last year, folks, water will still reach buildings. We can't expect that we can completely mitigate 6 inches of rain in 2 hours, but we can do an awful lot to make things a lot better for folks here in Ellicott City. So in order to fully mitigate future flood damage, there must be a shared responsibility between the government and our community. Property owners must take strides to flood-proof their buildings to truly prevent future flood damage, and we've seen a lot of that already here in Ellicott City. Over the past years, as I said, many property owners have taken steps to do just that, but more must be done to prepare ourselves for the future. The flood mitigation strategy that will best serve us in the future must be undertaken by our entire community. Now, I also want to thank the council chairperson, John Weinstein. He represents this area, he cares about this area, and he's been a great partner to work with as we've been going through this for almost exactly a year. And so I want to offer him an opportunity to say a few words and to publicly thank him for his work in making sure that Ellicott City moves forward. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to say I'm happy to be here, but I really wish we weren't. But because we're here, what I referred to recently is this horrible opportunity that was presented to us last year. We can all agree, and the executive and I have had this conversation many times, how amazing this recovery has been. That a year since the devastating flood and the amazing damage that was done to this community, where many of us walked up and down the street and just wondered, could we ever recover? The answer is in front of you. This town is thriving again and will continue to thrive and expand in ways that we hadn't imagined. All what the county executive just talked about is not about repairing and restoring this community, this town, Ellicott City, that we love. It's about making it a much better place. Safer for the folks who live here and work here, but also a better destination for those who've never been here and those who love this destination and come here regularly. This town is going to come back better than it was before. Part of that is an example of the businesses that you see on Main Street. When we walked down here just a month or so after the flood, I was communicating with a council member in a jurisdiction in Colorado whose town had experienced a fire and then a flood. And she said the biggest part was the businesses. And I said, well, how are yours doing? She said, 3 years out, we're about 50%. Well, we are 1 year out, and we're at 93% of the businesses open, operating, and some of them having amazing years in the business that they're doing. Now, we did lose some businesses that could not come back for a variety of reasons, but we have a whole bunch of new businesses that have added a new vibrancy, a new feel to the town, to the street, and have already made their mark and will continue to make their mark as we go forward. So I'm excited when I walk up and down the street. Sometimes you get a little confused. Some businesses have moved, right? So they were in one place, now they're in another place. But everybody who has come back strong. And the new businesses that have joined us are offering new services and some exciting new products as well. One of the things that we have to take time to do is to thank the people that gave of themselves, their time, their energy, their money. The thousands of people who flooded, I use that term literally, with a bit of tongue-in-cheek, the town afterwards to help clean up. Just in those days right after the storm, even the idea of cleaning the street and picking up the debris, it seemed overwhelming. But when you came down the days following, when volunteers started hitting the street, it was like a swarm of ants. Everywhere there were people. who had a connection or just a compelling reason to come and be a part of what was happening here in our town. And they made a difference, a huge difference. That compounded with the fact that we raised over $1.8 million from the public to support the businesses, the residents that make up this great community. That money was distributed so that people could come back, restore their businesses, and deal with the losses that they had. As the county executive said, we got a lot of projects in place, some that have already made the town better than it was before the flood, the stream beds that have been restored, but there is not much you can do, as he said also, when 6 inches of rain comes from the sky in just a couple hours. I was trying to comprehend that if you just turned your faucet on and to try to get 6 inches of rain, you know, it's a pretty steady stream if you did it over some time, and it's just a lot of water, and we studied that water flow deeply. I use that term a little loosely, but we went through a lot of studies to make sure that we knew where the water was coming from, where it was collecting, and from that study came all the projects the executive mentioned. I fully support the strategy that we've undertaken to study the problem, to pick those projects that will have the biggest impact, and I think the ideas that came from the community and from our county government staff, we picked some good projects. I'm looking forward to those moving forward, and reiterate what the executive said is it will take partnership from our state and federal colleagues. And then the floodproofing, I'll put another plug in for it. There's just so much we can do as well on the street, and behind the buildings, and under the ground. Our residents and business owners and property owners need to take the steps necessary, and we're providing the education. The Army Corps of Engineers has been involved to how we flood-proof the businesses as well. So I'll just wrap up by saying that, one, I'm deeply honored to represent this district, and I live just up the street. I picked where I live because of Main Street. My wife and I, when we were looking to move from Columbia, we had spent so much time on Main Street, we're like, we might as well move close enough so we can get there a lot quicker. I'm actually a neighbor of Joe Herr, the chief who came back into service for our community to help us recover. But the one thing that I think everybody will agree as well is the buildings are in better shape than they were a year ago. For sure, the streets back in service, the sidewalks are walkable, but the spirit that makes this community Ellicott City is indestructible. And we've learned that over this last year, and for that I'm grateful. And I thank those of you who in the community have come back to restore your businesses and restore your faith in this community that we know and love. One of the key elements of that restoration and the work that went on is our Ellicott City partnership, and the great leadership that entire organization provided in rallying the public to support what we did in the days after the flood, and all through up until today, and will continue to do going forward. And it's my great pleasure to introduce the Executive Director of the Ellicott City Partnership, Maureen Sweeney.
Good morning. My name is Maureen Sweeney Smith, and I'm the Executive Director of the Ellicott City Partnership and the manager of the Ellicott City's Main Street, Maryland program. The partnership is a nonprofit that represents the merchants, residents, and property owners in the historic district. We have an exciting weekend planned for the anniversary. Some events will be reverent as we remember the 3 lives lost and the severity of the flood. Some events will be joyful to celebrate our community's resiliency and recovery. And many events will be to thank our loyal patrons and supportive community. I'd like to highlight a few events that will occur this weekend. On Saturday morning, we'll start the weekend with a non-denominational Reflect and Remember community gathering of healing and hope at the top of the hill near the wine bin. And also on Saturday morning, we have the EC Strong 5K race, which will begin at the Circuit Courthouse parking lot with registration beginning at 8 and the race beginning at 8:30. At 11:30, we'll have the unveiling and dedication of the Kiwanis Club Newtown clock. Everybody is invited to join our community and elected officials in this attending this ceremony. At 12:30, we will have the Blossoms of Hope tree dedication behind the Welcome Center, and we'll have a memorial dedication of 3 cherry trees representing the individuals lost. All day Saturday, the Main Street merchants and restaurants will celebrate Appreciation Day, and will join together to thank donors, volunteers, and customers by offering thank you pricing throughout the town. There will also be a farmers market, outdoor movie, tour, art exhibits, and concerts throughout the town throughout the weekend. More information on this weekend can be found at visitoldellicottcity.com. Now, we'd like to remind everybody that we have plenty of parking with 200 spaces at the Circuit Courthouse and 500 spaces at the George Howard Building. We will be running a shuttle bus from Main Street to those parking locations from 10 a.m. to 4. The Ellicott City Partnership would like to thank our entire community for supporting Ellicott City, and we hope to see you this weekend. And on one other note, I would also like to thank the Economic Development Authority and the Small Business Administration and the Small Business Development Center. Garrett Glover is here from there. And they have been so supportive and helpful in getting our merchants back in business. And one of our merchants pointed out, it's one thing to get back in business, it's another thing to stay in business. So we really appreciate that we're seeing 2 to 3 times the walking traffic we used to have, and we really appreciate that the community has been so supportive, and we invite you to come to Ellicott City not only this weekend, but at any time. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Thank you, Maureen. And I just tell you, it's going to be an emotional weekend, folks. It's going to be highs, there's going to be lows, and we have to realize that. And there are some people who may not want to come, and we have to respect that as well. There are an awful lot of us, I think I probably speak for almost everybody, who's really looking forward to August 1st.
Oh, yeah.
And knowing that we come through a whole year, and we're back. And so while it's going to be an important day, and I'm looking forward to it, I hope everyone can be there, we also have to realize that it's going to be a very emotional day. And so let's make sure that we understand that and also respect those who may have a difficult time, as all of us will be having. On a really bright note, we've had an organization formed up. The Ellicott City Partnership did an awful lot to help us get through this. We now have the 1EC Recovery Project that has been doing an awful lot to help the residents in the area. And the County Council and the County Executive worked together this year to put $50,000 in our budget to give to 1EC Recovery Project to help them with their ability to work with residents. And so with that, I'd like to bring up, if I could, Adam Feldman, the chair of the 1EC Recovery Project, and Monica Fabry, the vice chair, to receive a check from us. But why don't you say a few words first, and then we'll get a picture of the check presentation. Thank you, Adam.
My name is Adam Feldman. I chair the 1EC Recovery Project. We are a community-based nonprofit that emerged in the fall of last year to assist with residential recovery. We've been working hand in hand, side by side with the Economic Development Authority, the Executive's Office, the Council, Ellicott City Partnership, Office of Emergency Management to focus on the residential recovery. And so we are coming to the end of our application process right now, gearing up for our casework, and looking forward to being able to assist residents in the watershed who are still recovering from this disaster last July. The gift that we will be receiving today is only a small part of the enormous support we have received from the county government. From the very beginning, we've seen nothing but care, love, and concern for the residents of the watershed area. And so we've been great being able to partner with them. Early on, during the first week of August, just a matter of days after the July 30th flood, I was volunteering with our church in the West End residential area, mudding out a couple of basements, taking out debris, working on mold remediation. And these two gentlemen showed up on a gator, jumped out of the gator, walked over to us. We were just covered in all kinds of stuff, but they were shaking our hands and they were saying, "Thank you for being here." And it wasn't a political thing. It was a deep care inside of them, and anybody who's a part of our community has seen that in our county executive and in our chairman of the council. So thank you both for your continued support.